everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making this Artemis pendant. Remember, you can gather your materials that were just listed or get the list below me in the description box. You can also click on there to order from us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. So to get started, we're going to begin with our central line. For that central line, we are going to pick up a combination of 11 O's with our MobyDuos as well as our half Tila beads. So we're going to begin by picking up 5 groupings of those. 1 11-0, 1 half Tila, 1 11-0, followed by a MobyDuo. When the MobyDuo is sitting upward, we want to go through that left-hand hole of the Moby. And I know it's a cream color. When it's on our crystal, it'll pop out a lot. So we're going then 1 11-0, 1 of our acrylic Tilas, 1 or half Tilas rather, 1 11-0, and another one of our Mobies, making sure that they're all going through that left-hand hole when they're facing up. Again, I'm going to do this in a series of 5. So I have on 2, and we're going to repeat. 3, 4, and one more will be 5. You can change up the design and do a different count if you want to. It's just going to change the count of your beads potentially. So as I go in here and add the last of my Moby, I also want to mention that you can use other beads for this. If you don't have the MobyDuos, you can try a Super Duo, which will be about the same thickness. You can try a bar bead as well, so try those out. From here, I'm going to tie this into a knot. And this is going to begin that central line. When I tie it into a knot, I'm going to do right over left and then left over right. Give a nice tight pull to kind of pull those in. What I'm going to do now is basically reinforce that center line, meaning I'm going to take my thread and needle and go back through that center with these beads. I'm using 0.006 wildfire beading thread in the green color. And you may ask, why am I using green? It's so you can see it. If I wasn't doing the video, I would be using white beads or white thread with these lighter beads. The beads that I am using are the opaque salmon color in the Miyuki Tila, and I'm using a half Tila. I have the MobyDuo in the champagne color, white champagne, and then the 11-0 seed bead I'm using is the Miyuki in the Duracoat galvanized champagne. All right, and then coming around here, I'm going to step up from one side of my half Tila to the other. So going around in this circle, once you're the whole way around, you're going to come out through your Tila bead and step up, meaning you're going to go from the bottom hole to the outermost hole on that same Tila. From here, we're going to add in 2 seed beads between each of our second holes. So we have the MobyDuo here, as well as the half Tila that we're going to add 2 seed beads. So pick up 2 11-0s and sew through, connecting all the second holes of all of these 2-holed beads. It's going to create a little bit of snowflake or a starfish look as we go around and repeat this a total of 10 times. You're going to have a total of 20 11-0s that get added this time as you go around connecting these 2 groupings of beads. From here, I want to attach and get in my next set of my half Tilas. To do so, we're going to be doing it in a square stitch, and I'm going to be adding 3 15s onto my needle, coming out one of the half Tilas, add a half Tila, add 3 more 15s, and then sew it into the opposite side of that same half Tila, rounding out the pattern. When you sew in there, it's going to have those 3 beads kind of create a gap. We're going to create a little picot trim by sewing back through bead number 1, as well as bead number 3 of those 15 O's through that half Tila and give a nice tight pull. When you give that tight pull, you want to make sure that the center 15 kind of pops out to the side and creates a little triangle point. Going into the next one then, same deal. So through the first 15, and then also through the third 15, and back through that Tila again at the top. Give a nice tight little yank and you'll see those points that are created, and it also pulls that half Tila bead in nice and close. From here, sew back through the 2 seed beads that are next, the MobyDuo, the 2 next 11-Os, and the next quarter Tila, or half Tila. I keep saying quarter, sorry about that. Half Tila. Make sure again that tail kind of stays out of the way. You get that nice and tight pull. From here again, it's going to repeat the same pattern another 4 times, 3 15s, 1 half Tila. After that half Tila, back into the Tila that your thread is coming out of in that circular fashion. Pulling that nice and tight then. Sew back through the first and the third 15. So I'm going through the first and then through the third 15. When I do that, the second 15 that's in the middle should kind of pop out to the side and make that little triangular point. Go through the half Tila, the first and that third seed bead, and then through that Tila that sits above. Again then around till you get to your next half Tila and out to add the next. So I have 2 added, I have 3 more to go, circling around and adding in my second layer of my Tilas with this square stitch, and then going back through to go through beads 1 and 3 to create those little points. From here, after getting the last of my half Tilas in, I'm going to step down along the project to go from one hole of the Tila to the outer hole of the Tila. So you can go back through those seed beads if you want. I'm even going to just kind of sneak around. It'll show a little bit of thread, but I'll bring that area to the back. And I'm going to switch from one of my half Tilas from the inner one there that my thread's coming out of to that first hole of the second or outer one. From here then, I'm going to step up from the hole that's closest to the hole that's further out. What I'm going to do now, as you can kind of see along the back, we're going to square stitch on 2 seed beads, and then we're going to add a grouping of 11. Square stitch on 2 seed beads and add 11. So along the outer row here, we are going to do 2 seed beads, 2 11-Os. We are going to square stitch through that Tila, and then we're going to go back through those 2 11-Os. From here, we're going to add 11 more seed beads and then do the same thing. So because I know I need to do the same thing all at once, I'm going to add 13 seed beads. So I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. What that's going to allow me to do is go to the opposite side of my next Tila bead and then sew back through the last 2. So I sewed towards the previous Tila, and I'm going to sew back through doing that square stitch while I already have those beads on, and sew through. That gets my first beads on and have my first little linking there. If you want to, I went back and forth with adding a 15-0 as I do that square stitch to just kind of have a little bit more look on it. But I'm going to continue then adding in my next 13 beads. So I have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Going to the opposite side of the next Tila bead. And once you're in that half Tila bead, you're going to come back through the last 2 beads, progressing towards the next quarter or the next half Tila. Give a nice tight pull so you don't see a lot of extra thread, and continue on. So I have 3 more groupings to do of this, and then I'll connect back with you. So as I add these last 11 beads, I've been picking up 13. I just have 11 to go for the last loop because I'm going to go through those first 2 beads that I added in that square stitch fashion along my first quarter Tila. That gets that whole outer edge that will sit along like crystal. From here, we're going to square stitch on another grouping of beads. This time it's going to be my quarter Tila. Then we're going to, or my half Tila rather, we're going to step down, add some beads along the side, square stitch on another one, going along and along. If you want to, you can also kind of reinforce and just add in all of your quarter Tilas. We can actually do that, but I wanted to bring out the crystal to show you what it's going to look like as we get that bling right along the top. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go all along the side, square stitching in one of our next of our half Tilas. Grabbing the half Tila after coming out of the two, you're going to go through the first hole of that half Tila on through the next two. Let's reinforce that outer loop going along through then all of those 11 beads. And then as we go through those 11 beads, we'll also go through the 2 beads that sit below the next one of our half Tila beads and bring the needle and thread out after those 2 that sit directly below it. And then grab your next quarter Tila and add it in. So we're going to sew all the way around that circle, adding in that square fashion, the next of our quarter Tila. So they're going to end up kind of just hanging out there to the side before we get in and add in our crystal and our last row of our seed beads that hang out to pull in the back. So as you finish going through and adding all of your last of your half Tilas in, you are going to come out the last 2 beads there after adding your last half Tila, and you're going to sew back through the half Tila, and we're going to down step from that innermost hole towards kind of those MobyDuos towards the outer hole, which is going to go towards the back. We're now going to catch on to our final half Tilas along the back here. We're going to make sure those those MobyDuos rather sit to the front. And as we pull to the back, we can do the first 3 or so before we actually add in our 27mm Potomac fancy stone. We are going to add 8 of our 11 seed beads. So I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seed beads. And then we're going to go from one of our half Tilas right over to the next. It's going to sit a little bit closer because these are going to pull in towards the back and keep the stone in place. So again, 4, 5, 6, 7, oops, back down to 5, 6, 7, and 8, and sew through the next half Tila bead. Again, make sure that the MobyDuos are facing kind of towards the top. It'll start to round out and create this cage, to which we will go in and add in our crystal. The seed beads that are on the outer edge that we added in groups of 11s will kind of sit right along the outer edge, and then we'll continue to add our groupings of 8. And as we add the groupings of 8, you'll want to definitely make sure that you have your crystal in place there because they're going to pull towards the back and catch that crystal and make it so that it is a simple bezel setting. So you can see it fits kind of perfectly around in that groupings of 8. So I have 2 more grouping of 8s that I will do right along here. And we're doing this simple netting basically is what it is. And what we're going to do after we do this simple grouping of 8s and we finish up to that last one is just like we did kind of when we talked about the front, reinforcing that front section, we're going to do the same thing along the back here too. We're going to take the 8 beads and reinforce going through all of them one more time. So I have 8 more to go in. I'm going to get into that last half Tila there and then circle around through that thread pass one more time. The very final thing to do is go from the innermost hole from the back of one of the half Tilas to the top and create a bail. I'm going to create the bail right along the 11 seed beads that sit around that top corner since that goes all the way around the outside of this beautiful cap. Going through here, or the beautiful Rivoli, I should say. Going through here, I'm going to go back through those 2 11 seed beads, and they have a lot of thread going through them, so it might be a little bit tight with my size 10 needle, but I got through no problem. And Anna just did a nice, quick little loop on the back of hers. I'm going to, since we already did some of that square stitch, continue on doing that ladder or that square stitch, adding 2 beads at a time, sewing in a rounded fashion through the 2 beads that my thread is coming out of. And just through those 2 beads. It wants to go through a lot more. Just through those 2 and out. And then we're also going to sew back through the 2 that the thread just came out of to make our bail. I'm going to continue doing this. Again, add 2, just like we've been doing. Sew through the 2 my thread are coming out of in that rounded section. Then back through the 2 that I just added. So I'm continuing to do this to create my bail to hold the actual top of the little Artemis pendant here. I'm going to continue with 4 or so more passes to make sure that I can fit my chain, my cording, my leather, whatever you're going to put it on through the loop. So you just need that bail. Whenever you're making a bail and creating a bail, you need it to be big enough to get whatever you are creating to sit inside of it. It would also honestly look really good with a little tassel hanging down from it. That was a suggestion of another one of our beading community members that saw us working through this on Twitch, another live platform that we broadcast on as well. So again, couple more passes through here. And then after I have my bail large enough, so I have on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's do a 6th row, and then a 7th row as well. And this is just that simple square stitch. You could do this with the 15 O's if you have more of those as well. After you're out through your last row and your bail is going to be big enough, it's going to be the size of whatever it is kind of rolled out. I'm going to connect it to my half Tila there in the back, going in the same side that the thread is coming out of from my last row of my square stitch. Go back through then that last row of square stitch, which is going to connect it together. From here, I give a nice tight pull, going back through that half Tila one more time. And then I'm going to downgrade into those 8 beads and down step into that half Tila and go back through a couple beads here in the back in order to tie off my thread. Once the thread is tied off at the end, your pendant is completed. You have this nice loop bail to go on, and we've worked through a nice pendant featuring some of the MobyDuos, as well as offering a solution to kind of a simple netting to expose the crystal and have it nice and open. Thanks so much for watching that beautiful Artemis pendant. Remember, if you want to make one, you can get your supplies from PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. Check below me for the links in the description to order from us. Remember, you can also subscribe by hitting that little bell so you get regular updates from us at Potomac Beads when we go live, when we have new tutorials for you, new beads, as well as countless of others' inspiration and ways to make you a better beader. Thanks so much for watching, and everybody enjoy your big Artemis crystal pendant.